Final requirements 1. Ang title na code natin is for final requirements 1 is simple interest. The interest rate, principal amount, time years. Ito ang una na code natin for input, then the ID for principal amount is amount, then the ID of interest rate is interest, and the ID of time years is time. Then the second code is to click button of value will appear then the third code is to display the output principal amount, interest rate, total interest amount, total payment, number of years to pay, numbers of months to pay, and monthly payment. Then the ID of the principal amount is P amount. The ID of interest rate yearly is interest R. Then the ID of total interest amount is total interest. Then the ID of total payment is total. Then the ID of number of years to pay is years. Then the ID of number of months to pay is months. Then the ID of monthly payment is monthly. Then the code span ID is equal code.js. This code will connect JS and HTML. But if you don't have code.js, he cannot connect to JS and he cannot compute. Then we're going to code our JavaScript. The function getTotal. The var interest rate. When you enter the interest rate, the principal amount will appear. Then when you enter the time years will appear. Then next is our formula for interest. Yearly is equal to interest rate. Total interest is equal to interest yearly times years time times principal amount over 100 or divide 100. Then total amount is equal to % total interest plus principal amount. Then months to pay is equal years times 12. 12 is how many months in a year. The monthly payment is total amount divide months to pay. Then for the last code is the output document that get element by ID P amount. Inner HTML is equal principal amount because you input here the value interest yearly is interest rate. What you input is your interest yearly. Total interest is multiply, then total amount is addition, years is default. How many months do you pay? Monthly payment is how much do you pay in month. Then years time is default, how many years do you pay. Then the output is the simple interest. Interest rate is example is 5. Then the principal amount is 5,000. Then the time years is 4. Then ito yung on click sa HTML code natin kanina. So the principal amount is 5,000. Interest rate yearly is 5. Total interest amount is 1,000. Total payment is 6,000. Numbers of years to pay is 4. Number of months to pay is 48 months. Then monthly payment is 125. Next, final requirements 2. length of lot meter. Then the width of lot meter is the ID is width, and the length of lot meter is the ID length. Cost per square meters is cost per square. Ito ang ating input. Then interest rate yearly is the ID is interest per year. Number of years, the ID is num of years. Ito ang ating input. Then on click get total, then the output or display the output. Then script src conditions.js. Then we're going to GS or Java script. Var length is equal to document.get element by ID length value. Var width is equal to document get element by ID width that value. Var cost is equal document that get element cost per square that value. Then var interest is equal document that get element by ID interest per year that value. Var years is equal document that get element by ID num of years that value. Then the formula is total area is equal length times width. Cost lot is equal cost times total area. Capital tax is equal 0.18 times cost lot. Total payment is equal to cost pars in capital tax plus pars in cost lot. Then total interest is equal to total payment times interest times plus interest times year. Then with interest is equal pars total payment plus pars total interest. Then months is equal 12 times years. Monthly is equal to total payments divide months. Then document that get element by ID total area dot inner HTML is equal to total area plus square meter. Then document that get element by ID cost lot that inner HTML is equal to cost lot. Document that get element by ID is capital tax that inner HTML is equal capital tax. Document get that get element by ID total payment that inner HTML is equal total payment. Document that get element by ID total interest in that inner HTML will equals in total interest. Document that get element by ID with interest that inner HTML is equal with interest. Document that get element by ID months inner HTML is equal months. Document that get element by ID months that inner HTML is equal to monthly. Then the output is example a lot acquisition loan and payment scheme. Length of lot meter example is 5. Width of lot meter is 4. Then cost square meter is 7. Then interest rate per year is 4. Then number of year is 2. Then total is equal to total lot area is 20, cost of lot is 140, capital gain tax is 25.2, total lot payment is 165, total interest is 1,320, total payment with interest is 1,485. Then number of months to pay is 24, monthly payment is 6.85. Then next, final requirements 3. Title is time and distance. The input of the time and distance is time and distance from acceleration and velocity. Initial velocity vi in ms. The ID of initial velocity is vi. Then final velocity vf is m over s. The ID is vf. Constant acceleration a in ms over 2. Then the ID is a. Then input type button on click mark, value compute. Then time t in s. The ID of time is t. Then the distance d in kilometer. The ID is d. Then script src is equal time.gs. Then the Java script is function mark. Vi is equal to 0. A1 is equal to document dot get element by a value. Vf1 is equal document dot get element by id vf value. Then the formula is tmp is equal vf1 minus vi1. Then t1 is equal tmp over a1. Then t2 is equal t1 times t1. tm2 is equal a1 times t2. Then d1 is equal 0.5 times tmp2. Then document dot get element by t inner is equal td. Document dot get element by id d dot inner html is equal d1. Then the output is initial velocity vi is sample is 56. Then final velocity is 57. Then constant acceleration is 5. Then time in s is equal to 11.4. Then distance d in kilometer is 324.9000003 or 324.90. Then next, the final requirements 4. The title is Ohm's law. The input is enter the value of voltage. The ID is voltage. Then enter the value of current. The ID of the enter value of current is current. Then button type button on click get total. Then the output is voltage. The ID of voltage is volts. Then current. The ID of current is amperes. Then the resistance. The ID of resistance is ohms. Then the power is the ID of power is watts. Then script src is ohms law.gs. Then go to JavaScript. Then function get total. Var voltage is equal parse int document dot get element by voltage dot value. Then var current parse int document dot get element by id current dot value. Then document dot element by id volts dot inner html is equal to voltage. Then document dot get element by id amperes dot inner html is equal to current. document get element by ID ohms inner HTML is equal voltage over current, then document that get element by ID once that inner HTML is equal voltage times the formula is of the voltage is linagay ko na dito sa output. Then the output of the code is enter the value of voltage. Example is 56. Then enter the value of current is 57. Then get total or click total. Then the voltage is 56. The current is 57. The resistance is 0.9824